Welcome, fellow enthusiasts of the unexplained, to Sasquatch Watch Radio. If you're as fascinated by the elusive, legendary creature known as Bigfoot, you found your new home here on Sasquatch Watch Radio. We're diving deep into everything Bigfoot. From thrilling eyewitness accounts and compelling scientific theories to the latest research, expeditions, and even a little bit of the folklore that surrounds this enigmatic being, we'll explore it all. Whether you're a seasoned squatcher or just curious about the giant hairy dude in the woods, you're in the right place. Get ready to have your perceptions challenged, your curiosity piqued, and maybe, just maybe, you'll start looking at the shadows in the forest a little differently. So settle in, turn up your speakers, and let's journey together into the heart of the Sasquatch mystery. This is Sasquatch Watch Radio, and the hunt for truth begins now. Here's your host, Gary Kendrick.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Sasquatch Watch Radio. I'm your host, Gary Kendrick. Today is August the 11th, 2025. We have a really fascinating guest on tonight. We're going to have on Mr. Brian Pearce, who has had about 40 years worth of experiences. And without further ado, I'll bring on Brian. Hey, Brian, how you doing?
How you doing?
Doing well, doing well. Hope everything's good where you're at.
Just a little wet, man. Other than that,
Just a little wet.
it's pretty good.
Yeah. I'd like to introduce Brian a little bit. Brian is a former United States Army veteran. He was with the 101st Airborne Division, and Brian is also a former trucker. He's done a little bit of everything when it comes to trucking. Brian, I'm going to hop right into it, brother, because we got a lot to talk about tonight. Can you tell me about your earliest encounter? I believe it was 1984.
Right. My earliest encounter is my parents were building a home here on the family farm. They had the builder frame the house and get it ready, and they were drying it in to save money. My mom come from a huge family, so we had a bunch of uncles and aunts willing to help. So my first real experience was the first time that we were here after dark. They were putting in the sheetrock. We were actually in my room. I was standing there watching. I had two or three of my uncles and my dad in there working, and me and my brother. And I saw it in the window. It's just a pair of big red eyes up in the top pane of the window. And I sat there staring at it for a while. In a few minutes, my mom her and a couple of my aunts had got some food ready for dinner for everybody, and they called, and everybody took off. And I was still standing there staring at it. After a while, my brother came in and got my attention, and when I looked back, it was gone. But it was just two big red eyes and standing in the top pane of the window. And from the outside, the windowsill is 6 feet from the ground for that window. So whatever it was huge. There was at the time, there were no street lights, no electricity. They were working off of string lights from the early 80s hanging in the ceiling. So you really didn't get a good look at what was out there other than the fact there was just two glowing red eyes. So, but that's the first real experience I had with what was happening here.
I know you mentioned the red eyes. The eyes that you saw, were they glowing? You think there might have been some kind of eye shine from ambient lights, or what do you think about that?
Well, like I said, the light we had wasn't very strong. It was I'm not sure you remember in the early 80s, the work lights they had, it was just an orange cord with a cage light on it. You had a 40, 50 watt bulb hanging in the ceiling. So if there were any reflection to it, it wouldn't have been very strong. But what I saw had its own ambient glow. It was almost backlit. And like I've described it before, it was like when you're kids, if you playing with a flashlight or camping or whatnot, and you shine it through your cheek or through the web of your fingers right there, you get that red glow from the blood through the skin. That's really similar to the glow that I saw. was just the shape like an eye, that red glow where it was like you could see the blood flowing through it.
And I know you had mentioned earlier that there was several kids in the neighborhood that you went to school with that had noticed the red eyes, and they even asked you guys about it.
Yeah, well, it was when that first happened, we had moved in. It was over the summer, and when we started school, we were riding the bus, and there was a girl sitting about 2 seats up from us, and that's how she broke the ice with us. Was she leaned over the seat and asked, "Hey, have you seen red eyes yet?" And that started the conversation where, once we got to school, it carried on, and just found out there were a lot of kids around the area that were seeing things out the window at nights, out by the fence or out by the barn or in the woods. Everybody's seeing something out there with red eyes, but it's something no one's talking about.
I've never seen the glowing eyes, but I've been around people that I've never saw the glowing eyes, but I've been around some people that have. And that's pretty unnerving, and I can't imagine being young and seeing the red eyes.
Yeah, it was you didn't want to go outside. You leave the light on.
I'd say not. And you've had probably roughly about, you said 40 years of encounters.
Well, that's how long we've been here, living on the land. Is my immediate family. My actual family's been here for well over 150 years on the land, but I can only speak for the 40 years that I've been here and the things and witnessed, and it's just been a lot of strangeness, a lot of unexplained just phenomenon, if you want to call it, that most people would chalk up as paranormal or whatever, but just the odd sounds, the things missing or moved, just you name it. We've had, at the time I've had 5 dogs at once disappear in one day. No sign, no trace, no track, no nothing, things like that. Just a whole slurry of things through the years. I could get into a lot of incidents, but I'm not sure where you want to start.
I tell you what, let's do this. Let's talk about some of your family stuff. Your grandfather, you said, planted 2 gardens.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about the gardening situation.
Well, he would have a small garden right by his house, and that's where he would get his vegetables from. But downhill from his house, maybe 150, 200 yards, was another small field. And behind that small field was a spot that was completely out of place. The whole farm was all mature hardwoods. Every bit of it's poplar, maple, sycamore, and hickory and oak. It's hardly any evergreens. But in that one spot, right in the heart of the farm, is this 1.5 to 2 acre square of Douglas firs that are planted in rows, and they're in there tight, and they're just completely out of place, and no one has an explanation for them. And they literally push right up to a swamp that was made by the beavers. But right in front of those trees, my grandfather would put a huge garden every year. But he always put the corn to the outside so you couldn't see in the garden. So, but no one ever used it. We'd ask him about it. He said it was a community garden, but I never saw anyone in it. There was one Sunday that I asked him about it, and it happened to be around family members, and my uncle was there, and he said it was a community garden, and I commented how no one ever used it, and my uncle said, "Yeah, I've never seen anybody in it." He said, "But for some reason, I bet you find bare feet prints in it." Within a few hours, my grandfather had got the tractor and plowed over the garden, just completely destroyed it. So there was no proof of what my uncle said. It was through the years, there was consistently enough just oddball behavior and things to make you piece together that you just weren't seeing the whole picture. Because my grandfather had rules of the farm when we moved in. That was it. You're not allowed on the property after dark, and you can't hunt his deer. And those were basically the two rules. Or the third is, if you hunt squirrel, don't shoot the ones in my yard. That's the rules that he had. That was it. But he was serious about them, and there was many a reason why.
Yeah, I grew up in, rural Appalachia right here. I know you grew up in North Carolina, but, it's pretty much the same. What my granddad said was law.
You didn't question?
No, you didn't question.
No.
You didn't question him. And, there's a lot of similarities there. My granddad never, he was a no-nonsense guy. He did, what needed to be done, and then he moved on.
Yep.
And he just kept rolling. But yeah, I understand.
Mine wouldn't even speak while he done it. He just did it.
Yep. Yeah. That being said, do you feel that your family had experiences on this property and just didn't talk about it?
Yeah. I shared my story about a year and a half ago and made it public, and it opened up a conversation where everybody has kind of let down the guard and talked about a few things. There have been several other people throughout the neighborhood and along the street that I live on that through the years have let known that they won't go in the woods any longer. But we had one lady, my parents had offered her a place to stay for a time being, and she had long since outwore her welcome. She was supposed to be here a couple of weeks, and lo and behold, it's 4 years later. And at one point they were literally wondering how they're going to get rid of this lady. And she ended up walking her dog out in the yard, and she had an encounter very similar to mine, and she was packed and gone within the hour. So, but there have been a lot of things through the years that, if I really give the time to sit, and we could probably sit all night and go on about it.
I know we talked about this earlier. You said, you'd had 40 years of experiences. Tell us about some of the experiences that you've had and some of the things that you've seen.
Well, some of the most memorable ones is, it's just, I'm gonna bounce all around on a place, as far as my age and stuff. There was always the noises, the sounds, the things out of places. And, you would always see things like full body colors shoot back and forth between the trees in the distance. You'd see black or silver, but never any shape. But as far as experiences, they really stayed limited until after my grandfather died. And we started hunting the deer on the land. That's when they became more prevalent. And shortly after that, I became a father myself. So, it's just been a lot going on. But some of the most memorable things, when I was about, I'd say 14, we had to go somewhere with my parents. Now, the way the land is set up is our farm is a central location to what they would call a country block. The road's set up, it probably makes about a 15 square mile radius that we're sitting in the center of. So we had to go somewhere first, and we're coming back through the area. So we were coming around the back side of our property and there's an intersection there. And my dad went to make the right turn, and he'd gotten pretty slow. Now, let me paint the picture for you. We had a small car. Now my dad is the world's champion at tuning out my mother. But in the car, you can't tune her out. So she knew when we got in the car, she's going to speak her piece. So me and my brother, he would watch traffic, I would watch the woods. But anyway, so we're going around this corner, and I see this thing come out of the woods, and it is just moving as fast as it can. It's picture perfect, shoulder forward, head down. It's a chimp in motion. This thing looks like a chimpanzee. It comes out to the road ditch. It tucks and rolls, and just both hands slaps the car, and then rolls backwards and runs back into the woods. Now I see it, but I can't tell completely what it is because it's solid black. Most chimpanzees, they've got a brown or a grayer face. You can distinguish it, but this thing is solid black. But there's no doubting the shape of it and how it's moving and what I saw. But my dad stops the car and he's looking in the mirror. He's, what the hell is that? And I was like, are you going to be mad if I tell you the truth? He said, tell me what you saw. And I told him it looked like a chimpanzee. And I waited and he's just looking at me. And most people at this point, that's where they would have stopped and got out and checked the damage. Instead, he started changing gears till we got 3 miles down the road to the store. And then while we were at a public place, he safely got out and checked the damage. So that didn't make a lot of sense, but I saw it, so it, and he didn't argue with me. He didn't anything. It was about a year or two later. You know how they talk about the smell, how you can walk into it and walk out of it as far as when you have encounters?
Yeah.
Our yard, you could do that daily. It was almost like a grid pattern because the way it was set up when we first moved in here, they literally just cut a square out of the woods and put the house in it. So we're surrounded by trees. Now, me and my brother were Boy Scouts, and we were headed to a camporee that weekend up in West Virginia. And we're going for our Life Scout badges at the time. And for a hobby, I carve wood. And I'm going to be sitting in the woods for a week. I wanted to take something with me. So I went out to the edge of the woods and I just started doing a sweep pattern around the house, looking for interesting sticks. There's a lot of vines out there. You'll get a lot of those twisted ones that I could cut and take with me to whittle on for the week. I walked up in one spot and I found half an animal. It was a small squirrel, just the shoulders forward. Everything completely gone in their back. And I'm standing there and I realize there's an opening where you can see the house in the yard. I thought, that's weird. So I go on about 10, 15 more yards and I find another one. And again, there's an opening where I can see the house. So I start looking and I literally made a half circle around the house. There were 6 or 7 spots consecutively where there were these small half-eaten carcasses, and there was an opening where at head high you could see the house, but from the house you couldn't see in. They're like 30 yards in, and these woods were thick. So I went and got my dad. I said, hey, you need to see this. So I took him back there and I showed him every one, and it was like, do you know what I'm showing you? It's like something is watching the house. What's going on? And he didn't act like I was crazy. He didn't act like I was overreacting or nothing. He just kind of put his hands in his pockets. He said, you and your brother need to go on and enjoy your camping trip. He said, don't worry about this. Me and your granddaddy will have it taken care of when you get home. So I was like, what do you mean you'll have it getting taken care of? What is there to take care of? What don't I know? Don't worry about it. We'll take care of it. Just go on. Well, so we went camping. Was gone for the week. When I came back, it was heartbreaking, man. They had done the one thing that I really didn't think my grandfather would ever do. Because there's about 7 or 8 acres between his house and ours of just beautiful, mature hardwoods, creek, everything, and all surrounding the house. It was beautiful. When we rounded the corner of the path and came into view of the house, during that week, they had clear cut and leveled every tree within sight. Just bulldozed it. They said they sold the timber, but the trees were still laying there. My dad had a giant Ford, like 4160 tractor. It was a big blue one with a big white bucket on the front. Mm-hmm. He had literally gone around the edge of the yard and all the trees that had been laid over and the stumps and the debris and the dirt. He had pushed it all up into a 5 to 6 foot berm all the way around the yard. He had doubled the size of the yard. My mom just thought he didn't know what he was doing and was giving her a bigger yard. She didn't know until this past year when we finally started having the conversations, the truth of why she was living in a Civil War fort. He admitted to it. When I brought it up, my mom looked at him. She said, "Is he telling the truth?" And my dad just kind of went, "Yep." And so I don't know what trouble he got for that, but I'm sure he's heard from it. But these are the kind of things, that there's just undeniable that there's something going on no one's telling you. But it was just so much. I mean, and at the same time, there was so much that couldn't be explained, just certain things in the night that aren't physical, but at the same time. So you have to give one, and the other, and never know exactly what's going on till you get answers, which is basically how you live. You just get to a level of comfort and get through the day. So, but other than that, I mean, there's just so many smaller things that don't even not even including me as well. I can't count the times my dad would come home from hunting and just be so frustrated because he would be like, "I can't stand these squirrels. They won't let me hunt. They keep throwing these pine cones up at me." Squirrels throwing pine cones up. Here's the thing. His deer stand is in a poplar grove. So where are the pine cones coming from? And how are they throwing them up? It's not squirrels. The times we would go fishing in the pond at night on the boat and just hearing rocks the size of tombstones coming into the water, and they're coming over a dam that's built up 25 feet. Something's really, really throwing these rocks. But there's just so much. There was one time, some of it you look back and it's funny. My son was about 8 and I took him hunting for the first time. When you first come out of the house, right in front of the house is a large field. And in the middle of that field is a huge pond where many, many, many years ago was an underground creek that come out, and they built up a dam, and the woods come up to that. So you can literally walk out of my house, turn right, and start walking uphill and be looking over the water and looking over a quarter acre of field at the same time. It's the best spot to hunt and fish. So I was taking my son hunting for the first time. So we came here from my house. We parked in the driveway. It's first thing in the morning. And we walked across the yard, and we got to the edge of the woods there and started up the hill. And the woods called my name. Now, it's happened the whole 40 years, but this is the first time my son has heard it. So he freezes. He says, "Dad," I said, "Yeah." He said, Why did the woods just call your name?" I said, "You heard that, huh?" And he said, "Yes, sir." I said, "Well, to be honest, that's why we don't let you go in the woods by yourself. Just stick with me and come on and let's focus on what we're doing." Well, while we was going up the hill, it happened another time or two. But as we got up there, it's really, really thick. And where I was headed, there's a spot where there's this log laying down. I could get in a position and nothing see me, but I could see it. So I got in this spot, and I can hear whatever this is in the woods. I got my son sitting beside me on this log, and whatever's calling my name, I can hear it walking through the woods. And it's on 2 feet, but it's moving slow. It's taking a step and waiting a minute, taking a step. It works its way over to the edge of the woods. And I'm sitting here waiting. I've got the vantage point. I'm sitting up here. It doesn't know where I'm at. I'm waiting. The air is so tense and thick. I mean, it's ridiculous. But after a few minutes, whatever this is sitting there right at the edge. And it's an old cutover where they cut down the forest. And so I can't see what it is, but you can hear it just kind of shifting back and forth. And this goes on for 10, 12 minutes. So finally, my son is so unnerved that he jumps up and fakes a sneeze and says, "Dad, I'm sorry I ruined your hunt," and takes off running and ran all the way back to the house. So I had to go catch him. But by the time he beat me there, and by the time I get there, my brother's there, and he's telling him, you don't have to worry. That thing's only called your dad's name all these years. He won't bother you. It only wants your dad, which was a good thing to tell my son, but it's just one of those things where, that happened? You know, how do you explain that to people? The woods were calling your name so badly that your son got scared.
Yeah.
There's just been so much, man. But ultimately, it all led up to one major encounter here. I had shot a deer, and it was just before dark, and it was one that I had been hunting actively for a couple of years. I'd been trying to cull him out for a while, but he went in. I didn't want to lose him. He was a big one, and he'd already got up once, and so I just wanted him to lay there, and it was freezing that night, so I left him, and I was going to come back that morning. I came back that morning, and it was freezing cold, and there was no sound in the woods. And I went to where he had went in, and I found this trail, and there's a hole punched into the undergrowth there, and there's nothing there but briars and blackberry and you name it. If it snags on your clothes or causes to cut on your skin, it's growing in there. And so there was one little hole for a deer, and I've got the shotgun, so I squat down on the ground, I'm hugging my gun, and I'm doing the sidestep crab walk through this little tunnel through the briars, and I'm almost through it when the gun barrel snaps on one of those frozen blackberry vines, and it broke off, and it popped off like a firecracker. And within a second or two, there was something growling at me in a way that I didn't think possible to experience on this continent. It lasted about 12 to 15 seconds, but I'm squatted down, sitting on my heels, standing on my toes in this trying to squeeze through this tunnel. This thing it's tickling my feet. It is vibrating so strong. I mean, it's going through my body like it was like being on post, when you get a couple of Blackhawks together. It was doing that through my body. And so I completely freeze because there's nothing here, nothing that makes that sound. And then I hear the first step, big, heavy, something's coming, and it's moving fast, and it's covering a lot of ground, and I'm still stuck in these briars. So all I know to do, I racked the shell in that shotgun, but I had cut my hand over the ejection port, so I racked it and fed it right back in it. So, I mean, I'm sitting here with 6 slugs, and I don't think I've got enough, because when I look up, I am in the shadow, as I've described it before, of the X-Men's juggernaut. I can see it. I see its head and shoulders and its arms hanging free, and I see it's in its shadow. It flexes its hands and fingers. I see it. So I know what I'm looking at, and I am in the worst way.
Oh, yeah.
This thing is standing over me, and it's called my name for 20 to 25 years. So it knows me. And I can't look at it, because if it calls my name, we're both going to hell today. I'm sorry to say that, but it's just, that's how I'm going to react. So I'm literally petrified, man. I'm coming to terms with my own existence, honestly. But in those few seconds, you piece everything together. Like they say, my life flashed before my eyes, but every little thing that I had questioned all those years about what I'd seen, what I'd heard, just all of a sudden came together with a ding. Standing behind you is is a Sasquatch. And, you know, your grandfather was feeding them in that little spot that's most likely been a nursery for these things for generations. Just like I said, my family's been here for nearly 200 years. And those trees are old. And so I don't know whether he just got smart on what he was dealing with, or whether it was an ancestral. I'm not sure how he ended up in the situation he was in. But I'm pretty sure it's what he was doing. That's pretty much the last time I really went into the woods. You know, there were a few things happened here or there where I'd really question, you know, what am I looking at? What am I dealing with? But I never thought of that, man. You know, you think Bigfoot, you're thinking Pacific Northwest, California. You know, I'm a country boy in North Carolina. We didn't even have books on that. So you don't, it's the furthest thing from your mind here in the Bible Belt when you're experiencing stuff in the woods, and you just think it's, you know, it's paranormal because all of this land was occupied by someone first. So you just have to chalk it up to the unexplained until you see it. And when you do, it still don't make sense because you've been 30 foot from this thing for 40 years and this is the first time you see it. I mean, it's you know, even having your questions answered just gives you more questions. But since then, the next year I became a truck driver, and I've had the opportunity through the years traveling across this country at all different hours of the day and night to have actually laid my eyes on 3 more. There's one in Illinois, one in Tennessee, and I've seen the wild man of Massachusetts. If you'd like, I'll tell you about those, or if you'd like to talk about what I've already spoke about, I'll leave it up to you, Kerry. What do you want to do, man?
I'll tell you what, we're going to take a little break from it just for a second.
Okay.
And if you'll remember, I asked you a pretty weird question. Okay. It was, what kind of music do you like?
And I told you, as everything for me is mood. I am absolute Gemini. I mean, by true definition, from food to clothes to music to whatever I'm doing the next 5 minutes, everything is the mood of the moment. So it all depends. But you can't go wrong if you hit me with some grungy country rock. I'm all right.
Yeah. Well, we had AI create you a song, and we're gonna play it for you right now.
Okay.
Brian Pearce, born on Carolina dirt. Cows in the field, big dreams in the herd. Saw the shadow of something tall by the barn late at night. I heard it call. Bigfoot on the highway, chasing him down through the mountains, the woods. trust. Eyes on the road, but his mind drifts back to that hairy beast on the old dirt track. Footprints in the mud, fear in his blood. Bigfoot on the highway, chasing him down through the mountains, the woods, the small town. Brian seen it again and again. Bigfoot on the highway, no one believes him. You and I are bound. You are my way. Oh, you and my town. You are my way.
That was pretty good, man. I gotta give you that. You're right, though. Nobody believes me.
I said the USA needs a resurgence of some good old-fashioned Southern rock. That's what we need right there.
Yeah.
Few things I did want to talk about.
Go ahead.
This is a weird question. I ask all of my guests this, and I do this to try to get into the headspace of the people that I'm talking to. And I know that sounds really weird, but you'll kind of see in a minute. But I'll explain it as I go along. The question is animal, mineral, or vegetable? Animal, do you feel that Bigfoot is a living, breathing animal? Mineral, do you think that it might be interdimensional, extraterrestrial, or vegetable? Do you believe it's something spiritual, or do you think it might be a combination of all of them, or whatever you think?
I think it's just an animal. I believe it's a leftover hominin myself. It's smart. It's more human than it is anything else. And we don't give it the credit it deserves. That's why we're so misunderstanding. Everyone's out there tracking an animal, and the fact is they should be tracking a human that's watching them. And that's why it's so difficult.
Yeah.
Because
I said this a bunch too. I get stuck between it's a remnant population of some kind of American great ape, and it's a remnant population of some type of pre-human. And I get stuck between those two quite a bit. But that I'm with you. I think it's 100% living, breathing animal.
Yeah, I think it's just its own thing. I mean, there were so many different hominins, honestly. And you and I have talked about it before with the uncanny valley effect. I think,
Yes, sir.
to be honest, I think we probably slaughtered a whole lot of what was here before us. And they watched, and they were smart enough to stay away from us. So, you know.
And I'll explain that a little bit to the audience. The uncanny valley theory of human evolution is that human beings, have a fear of things that look human. Like if you notice that when, like a robot or something has a really human-like appearance, that people automatically tend to be afraid of it. And the theory with the uncanny valley goes that at one point in human evolution, there were so many pre-humans together that they may have been preying on each other, and that they developed a fear of things that looked like them because they were still in their young or whatever. I think the best example was that Paranthropus and I think it was Homo habilis existed at the same time, and they believed that Paranthropus may have preyed on the children of Homo habilis. Therefore, that's, how it all got started.
Well, they have found tool scrapings on the Neanderthal bones as well.
Yeah. So it's pretty interesting theory. Another thing that I wanted to talk about was your first visual encounter. You described it like a chimp down on all fours. Do you believe that was a juvenile?
I believe so. Yeah, I think it was just a small, a young one. Like I said, I really think that's what they use this area for, is just like a nursery, because there's, there's no one in these woods going to bother them. They're really not. And, they don't really have to go anywhere and do anything with the amount of poachers we have, what we call horn hunters. Because I've seen times when they're in season and they're running the clubs with the dogs, or I've seen times you pull down a short deserted path and you'll find 10 to 12 decapitated deer bodies just laying there in a pile. Mm-hmm. So you'll go home and get a trailer and, we got to go dig a hole. This is, it's not good for everybody's health. You go back and the pile's gone. They've got Uber Eats here. I mean, it's literally, so it's it's the perfect area for them. I mean, no one's looking for them. No one pays attention, and no one certainly believes in them. I mean, it's here in the South. If you go 10 miles down the road, they've got another name for it. You got the woolly booger, the wood booger, the kittywampus, the catawalla. The list goes on. That's just within 10 miles of here, what I've heard people call it. So that's no one puts the pieces together. Each little area's got its own little monster, and they don't all realize that they're all the same thing. Mm-hmm. I myself am on the boat where I think there's more than one kind of them, because just what I've seen is such a difference in them. But then again, I don't know how that goes as well, because I was once as a zookeeper, and I know sometimes the alpha male will completely change his appearance when he becomes alpha, such as like the black buck or like the silverback. That they completely change their appearance and color. So I don't know if maybe it's like that, like with the ant. Maybe that one that I saw in Massachusetts might be a soldier of some kind, because it moved like one. But there's a lot of questions that we could, sit and hypothesize all day. But the fact of the matter is, they are real, and it's a real living, breathing animal. And we're just looking at it wrong, because that's why we're making the mistakes we are and finding them, is because we're still thinking of them as animals. Well, from what I've seen, they're not. They are not.
Yeah, that's a really interesting theory. Did you get a look at the Sasquatch as it come into you when you was all hunkered down in those briars? Did you get a look at any of it?
No, I never did. Initially, when it first happened, it was just a real tense moment or two of just dead silence. I actually started talking to it, and I told it what I was going to do. I literally took my hand off the gun, and I told it, I was like, I'm taking my hand away from the gun, and I'm putting my hand down on the ground. And from there, I said, I'm going to take my left leg. I told it what I was doing, and I could see it kind of slump its shoulders and cock its head. I confused it a little bit. But as I backed out, I could see him slowly backing out as well. So about it, because if this thing has watched me all these years, then it knows what's going to happen when I stand up with that shotgun. So when I stood up, it was gone. So it was just one of those, neither of us meant to be in that situation, and neither of us wanted the outcome. So, everybody got to live another day. But
that's always a good day.
Really a good day, man. I was pretty shook. Because I was living like 5 miles down the road here. I was renting a place, so I was coming in that morning to look for the deer I'd shot that night. So by the time I came out of the woods, I walked backwards out of the woods. So I came out. By this time, my dad was awake, and he sees me, and he's in there making breakfast, and he knows I shot the deer. He heard me shoot twice. So he's like, where's your deer? And I'm like, he's not there. And he's like, nope. You lost the trail. You're being lazy. Come on, let's go. I know it's cold. And it's like, no. I had to fight with him to keep him from going back there, because I just didn't think that he had any business walking back there at that minute after what I just went through. So, yeah, it's, I went back 2 days later, and the only thing that was there was the head. It had ripped the head completely off of the deer, and it had crushed the skull so bad that when I went to move it with the toe of my boot, it sounded like a bag of marbles. I mean, it just pulverized the skull. I don't know why it did that, but I'm pretty sure, considering how they get the Uber Eats from the head hunters around here, I'm pretty sure why it just left me the head. So it's and in their mind, they probably think that's all we want.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
you know.
I understand that. You were talking about finding the small animals.
Yeah. Yeah, there was
is that a recurring thing? Does it still happen?
Well, when I was younger, it was something that had started to be a commonplace thing, to the point where there was hardly any small game here at all. It's just now that we're starting to get a little bit back. Now there is a large owl population, but everything here has just been completely decimated. My grandfather had, he had championship dogs, man. I mean, he had a pack of beagles that you'd have paid good money for, and we couldn't even run them. I mean, because you turn them out of the truck and they just sit there and look at you like, what do you want me to do? There's nothing. I mean, the dogs couldn't find a scent. There was nothing, no animal of any kind. And the only thing you would find would be occasionally that half of a carcass from the shoulders forward. And just be completely clean. The cavity empty, no blood, no nothing. Just like I've said before, like a candy bar wrapper, just tossed aside. But always the back half, just right there at the shoulders, just bit completely off.
I know you had mentioned the smells, and we have a question from one of the guests here. If I can get this stupid mouse to work, we'll pull it up. Come on. Yeah, I forgot to tell you that grid pattern of the smell lined up with the holes that I had seen when I showed my dad when they tore down the trees. So David says, Brian, do you smell that all the time? Did you smell that all the time? I'm sorry.
We used to, but since, like I said, my dad, they just took all the trees down and pushed them back. So it's grown back somewhat now, but nothing like it was. Before, it was a daily occurrence. I mean, it'd be a few times a day. You'd be standing there and nothing. And then all of a sudden hit you in the face for 2 minutes and then be gone. And then later on the day, it would happen again. Through the years, it's less and less. But like I said, they took away the woods. But you still run across it. If you go through the woods and at the right time and you're running across stuff and you're making another noise and letting things know you're there, you'll run into it. I mean, I promise that.
Nick wants to know what caliber shotgun and was it slugs?
Yeah, I had 2.5 inch slugs and a 12 gauge, and I was scared to use it because that was big, man. I mean,
yeah,
I could tell from that first step the weight. When I was in Roanoke, man, I lived next to a cattle rancher, and he had a bull out there that didn't move the ground that way. Big bull. And no, I had a 12 gauge and I did not have any want to use it other than if I had to.
Yeah, that's a big one. When you can feel it moving, that's a big one. And I know you mentioned the yell and how you can feel it vibrate through your body when it screamed at you. When he growled at you,
He growled at me, yeah.
I have felt that. You can feel it in your chest. You can just feel it kind of shaking, like vibrating.
Mm-hmm.
And the Black Hawk thing, that's pretty accurate.
That's what
I know
it felt
the loudest thing when I was in the military was the Hueys. And you get a couple of them going, and yeah, you can feel it before you see them.
Yeah, but you were a Marine, though. So you know the rule of a Marine helicopter. If you get in and you don't see hydraulic fluid on the floor, get out because there's none in it.
There's none left. None left.
That's right.
Yeah. And my favorite was they had a sign inside the helicopters that said, "Do not poke holes in aircraft with weapons or body parts." And I got to thinking about that. Body parts. Poke a hole in the aircraft.
I went through airborne school, and I'm get off topic for a second, but our third jump to qualify, there was a guy in front of me. His name was, I want to say Thorne, but he was from Flint, Michigan. Now, they got the static cords that pull for you right, so you don't have to operate the parachute. Well, this guy got hung up and literally is hanging out the door, beating on the side of the plane. And they're fighting to get him loose. And I'm the next soldier. I'm standing there watching. And our lieutenant major there, he looked like Johnny Bravo. I guarantee you he bench pressed 525. Just a great big man. They finally get this guy off the side of the plane. He's just beating up against it, and I'm watching. And he looks at me and he says, "Go!" And I said, "No." And he grabbed me by the belt loop and the collar, and he threw me out the door of that plane. So, yeah. Go team.
I can see that. I can see that. The animal that ran out in front of your dad's car, do you think it was trying to play some kind of game?
I really think so.
How aggressive was it towards the vehicle?
It didn't seem aggressive. It came out literally just shoulder forward, just as fast as it could move. When it got to the ditch, it tucked and rolled. And when it came up, both arms just slapped beside the car like that and rolled right back away and right back into the woods.
Wow.
So I've never heard anybody else say anything about anything like that around here. 40 years, I've never seen that again. It's just that one time. But I doubt anybody would, how do you tell anybody? Hey, that chimpanzee came and slapped the car at the intersection. You just don't.
Was there damage to the vehicle?
It was just a little dent, man. You pulled it out with a plunger from the bathroom. I mean, it's just a little body dent in the side of the door. It was an '89 Chevrolet Sprint just before they made the Geo.
Yep.
It's a little bitty car.
Yep, I remember them. Another thing I'd like to talk about is you had mentioned intelligence. Now, I'm going to give my take on it, and then I want you to give your take on it. I have seen a large amount. I mean, this is a highly intelligent animal, but the intelligence that I have seen is more in lines with a animal intelligence. I don't really see that much human intelligence in it. Now, I know you have a counter for that, and I'd like to hear about your encounters with intelligence.
Well, I mean, it's no secret they have a language, communication. But the one I saw in Massachusetts, he was standing by the road, or he was walking by the road right there beside me in the truck. And I caught myself laughing at him because he reminded me of myself. And it just in this 1 second and what he was doing, I will get back to, I'll describe all of my encounters, but he reminded me of when I go to the grocery store and I'm, being a guy, I don't write down what the wife says I need. So you're walking down the aisle trying to remember that fourth thing. He was trying to remember that fourth thing. I watched this thing for 20, 25 seconds. He was counting on his fingers. He was trying to remember that fourth thing. That chills me to the bone. That is problem solving. That is cognitive reason, rational thought. That is making anyone that wants to put this thing in a trap an absolute idiot. I don't want to be in the same state if you want to do that. You're talking about 10 foot tall, 1,200 pounds, and that intelligent. And everyone is going to underestimate this thing at every step. They have watched us. Whether or not they are that smart or not, they have watched us and have enough learned behavior and mimicry just by watching us that they can do enough problem solving. They could probably outperform most elementary school children in tasks now just by watching. Much less, what intelligence they actually possess. And no one's giving them the credit of mimicry and learned behavior. One, they're automatically as intelligent as we are. But two, everything we learn, they learn. And everybody that's researching, is making it harder to find them, because every time they figure out a new way to track them, the first thing they do is go out there with a camera and on their YouTube and show everybody. Guess who's watching you? Guess who's not going to make that mistake again? You're shooting yourselves in the foot. This thing is, yes, it's an animal, but in the same time, it's not. And everybody can think I'm crazy all they want to. I don't go in the woods, man. I don't go anymore.
I understand. I understand what you mean.
That scares me, man. Especially.
Mick has another question. He wants to know, was it East or West North Carolina?
Central Eastern.
Yeah, I'm pretty familiar with North Carolina. I was stationed in North Carolina for a while on Camp Lejeune.
What most people don't understand about North Carolina is, it's everyone talks about how these things follow the water. North Carolina's covered with water. It is one giant aquifer. There is underground streams coming up from underneath your feet everywhere. If you're in the woods of North Carolina and you can't find water, just keep walking. In 5 minutes, you're going to get there. So there's water everywhere here. And there's a lot of places that people just aren't willing to go, especially now that most of North Carolina is now people from New York. I'm going to be honest with you. One of the last times I was in Raleigh, somebody met me and didn't recognize my accent. He lived there for 8 years, had never met anybody from here. So, no one's taken into consideration just who's in the woods looking for these things. Most people don't know the woods. They go home to their apartment. So
I know that's a big theory of mine, that based sheerly on the size of the animal, they can't veer away from a permanent water source. Because as a human, you need at least a gallon of water a day to stay alive. Yeah. When we were in the Persian Gulf in the desert, we were drinking up to like 5 gallons of water a day. So this thing cannot veer far from water. It has to be near a permanent water source.
Especially with the money.
Of course, that's just what I thought. Mick says, let's see here. My wife's sister lives in Raleigh, Durham. I've been all over eastern North Carolina, and there's plenty of forests and hilly areas out there. Oh yeah.
I remember when it was all fields.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's the thing, farming has really been on a decline in a lot of places. And
the government did that.
Yeah, it's going back to forest. And, we've had a big surge in bear populations and everything else.
Yeah, the government killed the American farmer. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah. But another thing too I wanted to talk about is your encounters as a truck driver. I'm not going to say long haul truck driver because I don't know, but you had sightings in Tennessee, Illinois, and Massachusetts.
Yep.
Start off. Let's hear about your Tennessee encounter.
Well, the Tennessee encounter, that was actually about a year after the one in Illinois. I was coming out of Knoxville area and headed into the Seaberville area on 40. And there was I don't know if it was an accident or construction or what, but there was this, I-40 was a parking lot. There were 6 lanes of just stop traffic as far as you could see. And it won't moving. So I put it in park, reached back in my refrigerator, and I started making me a sandwich and getting a drink because I'm going to sit there for a while. And I looked over out the window, and right there beside me, because, you know, there was 2 big hills coming down and one little valley right beside the truck, where through that valley I could see down several miles. And down in the bottom, there was a hangar down there. Or some would call it a barn, but I call it a hangar. They were just opening the door and they were bringing out this international tractor, one of the big 12 tire things. It's big, massive $2 million tractors. Well, I'm from a small town farm. I'm fixing to get a show. I've been wanting to see what one of these things will do. Well, this guy gets out of the barn and he starts tearing up his land out there, and he's making quick work of it. I'm watching this tractor, you know, earn its money. And I'm about 75 yards down, I noticed there's a small apple tree that's about maybe 8-10 foot tall. And off to the left on the ground of that apple tree, I see a round hairball. And it's literally just a round, big ball of black hair. I can see like the tufts of it, but I can see up in front of it to each side movement. So I'm thinking, because it's spring, it's a mama bear and her cubs just enjoying the afternoon, you know. So I'm getting a treat. I'm watching the tractor. I'm watching this bear. And the tractor finally finishes. He goes out of sight and around the way. And so I start paying attention to the bear, and I'm hoping she gets up. Well, it starts to raise up. And it raises up, and suddenly the head starts to come up. And I'm seeing it from behind now, but it's pointed and there's no ears. So I'm going, what's wrong with this bear? Well, all of a sudden, one of those black things that are moving shot up in the air like this. And it was his arm, and he reached out, put it on the ground and turned, and this thing stood up and walked to his hand. I mean, had his hand on the ground the whole time. It walked to its hand. From there, it stood up and stretched in front of that tree, but it's still facing away from me at the farmer. But this thing is eclipsing an apple tree. It's black. It's just the giant King Kong looking thing. It turns and takes about 2 or 3 steps and disappears into the woods. But I'm about to choke on my sandwich, man. I thought I was looking at a bear. But it just, the weirdest thing, because when the arm came out, you know, first it was like this and then the forearm, but when he flipped his hand up, the length of his hand, even at that distance, I could see that wasn't right, you know, because it was so big. But he just put his hand down and turned and walked to his hand. And no person can do that. There's just no, I don't know anybody that can. I mean, I've tried to challenge my daughters to do it, and they can't. But
it's pretty interesting.
That was my tennis.
What time of day was this?
Believe it or not, it was about 10 o'clock in the morning.
Wow.
I mean, sun out, middle of the day. I was just wondering, because of the timing and when it finally moved and the way it was doing, was he watching the tractor the same way I was? Because when the tractors went out of sight, it's when it got up and walked away. So I was wondering, you know, was that his TV for the day? But it was just giant and black and unexpected.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, I didn't tell anybody about that one because after I told everybody about my first one, I was like, I ain't telling anybody.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about your Illinois encounter.
Well, that was the first one. I had picked up the day before just outside of Chicago, and there's a small TA there. So I shut off early because there's nowhere there to park up in Illinois after a certain amount of time of the day. So I shut off there early to get an early start. So I leave out of the south of Chicago about 4:30 in the morning, and I'm headed south, and things are going good. It's a Saturday morning. There's hardly anybody on the road, man. It's early Saturday. It's southern Illinois heading into Kentucky. There's nobody on that highway hardly unless they have to be. And I'm going along, and I'm about 30 miles from the state border, right there where Kentucky and Missouri and Illinois all come together. And this buck comes out across the street, and he's coming from the other, the oncoming lanes. But, I'm from North Carolina. We get good bucks, but we don't get those, Boone and Crockett style bucks. We just, they don't, this thing was magazine worthy. I mean, he came across the road. He was an impressive animal. So I'm slowing down. I want to get a look at him because he's in no hurry. I don't want to scare him off. I'm in no hurry. All I got to do all day is drive. So, but it crosses the road in front of me and jumps this fence into this small field. But as soon as he hits the ground in that small field, he does something I've never, ever seen a deer do. Now, I have seen deer come out and low crawl across the field during hunting season because they know you're hunting. But this deer jumped the fence, and when he landed, he bowed up like the cartoon drawings of a witch's black cat. I'm not kidding. His butt nearby touched his shoulders, and his back was just at its complete apex, and his head was all the way down to the ground, and he was staring down this hill, straight down this hill toward this tree. And it's one of those trees where they're split off, their 7 or 8 trunks come up in a grouping, and he's just staring. And I'm just looking at this deer like, what in the world? And I've already slowed down for the deer, so I started slowing down. What is he looking at? So we go down this hill. Now, this time the sun happens to be shining right on this spot. Otherwise, I wouldn't have seen it. When I get down to the bottom of the hill there at that tree looking up at the deer, it's standing about 6.5 foot tall. Now, I see it in the sunlight. I saw his arm because it's the color of paprika. This thing shone like a brand new penny when the sun hit him. But it's a Sasquatch, and he's staring at this deer, and he's got this smug smirk, man. I mean, it's creepy. He's looking at this deer like, that's right. I know, he's just got that I know what you don't know look. It was creepy. But at the same time, it was really creepy because this particular one was so similar to the costumes on Planet of the Apes.
Mm-hmm.
So I go straight to the internet. I'm not from the area. I don't know, whatever. But I'm on a trucker group that's got 15,000 members in it. So I turned to them. Hey, here's where I'm at. This is what I saw. Is anybody from this area? Is this a normal thing? Of course, I went through a whole day of hell from everybody, but there was finally a few local people that spoke up and was like, yeah, that's pretty common. Yes. Have you ever heard of this? Have you ever heard of that? So it kind of verified it. But after that, I wasn't going to tell anybody what happened because I went through a day of hell just to get that information because I heard a lot of flack from admitting to everybody that, and I didn't say I saw Bigfoot. I said, I just saw something that can only be described as Bigfoot. You know what I'm saying? And there's instantly, you need a drug test. You need the drug test. You need sleep. You need that, it just all this stuff. And so I didn't say anything the second time when I saw that one in Tennessee a year later. But, after that one in Tennessee, though, it's about a year and a half go by, and I'm not looking for these things. My curiosity's been met. I've been close enough to one. I don't want to see another. But I had to pick up a load. I had to pick it up it was headed to Laredo, Texas. And I had to cross over. It's just north of the border of Massachusetts and New Hampshire. Now, when I first get off the interstate, I think it's 92 or 94. Y'all forgive me. I've not driven in years. But I was on Route 9 headed north, and there's a small town there called Glen. Now, it's a cute little town. The whole entire town is to the right side of the highway because it's a service road off the interstate. And I mean, it's just a cute little drive for half a mile. You see the whole town. It's as cute as it can be. So I pulled through. It's early morning. I still got a few miles up. I go up, I cross the state line. I get loaded, and I turn around. I'm coming back. Now, when I'm coming back, it's like 8:30 in the morning. Now, this road is actually following around the footprint of a mountain. It's on one side, it's almost straight up in some spots. And on the other side, there is a dry creek bed running along the side of the road. And they've done everything they can for erosion, but there's no road for an 18-wheeler. I mean, I'm trying to keep one tire out of the ditch while keeping the other tire out of the car beside me. But at this point, it's 8:30 in the morning. Everybody's trying to get to work. So there's traffic because everyone's trying to get around the interstate. Now, I'm coming along, and there's coming up to one spot where it's about 2 miles north of the town. The road follows around this big drop off and comes around and does a complete half a circle and comes back around. And it's downhill the whole way and then back up the other side. Now, I'm coming up on it before I make this turn. This whole spot is a clearing. It's a field, and there's one little row of trees straight up the middle. I mean, it's a single row of trees, and they're about 8 foot tall. I'm driving along, and I'm not looking. I'm not paying attention. If something catches my attention, because above these trees, I see this thing's head, and it's a good foot or two above the trees. And it catches my attention because of the way it's moving. It looks like a parade float just gliding above the trees, just moving. And that's all I can see is this big hairy. I can see like from here up his forehead and his hair. And it's just like, what am I looking at? So I start making my way around the curve. I'm already bringing it down real slow. And I see his face when he finally steps around a tree. And I realize, holy cow. So I start bringing her down real slow. By the time I come around and we clear the trees, I'm staring at this thing head to toe. It's walking straight at me, and I have slowed it down to, I'm going about 4 miles an hour. I can't really stop because it's just a bad place, because I'm doing everything I can to keep the truck in the road, not run over everybody. There is a steady line of traffic coming this way. They can't see this thing because along the side of the highway is a hedgerow there. The bushes are about that much taller than the top of the cars. Mm-hmm. I'm literally hanging out the window pointing. No one sees what I'm doing. But this thing, its head, I guarantee you, was that big, man. But I saw him from the bottom of his feet to the top of his head, from front, side, the back. I watched this thing for a while. But his face, his skin was not black. It almost had like a blackberry look to it as far as hands and his feet, that almost purple, but not quite black, but purple, just real deep, dark, like blackberry juice. Mm-hmm. That was the color of his hands and feet. But on his face and chest and everything, it was almost freckled in with a muddy brown. It almost looked like the top of a blackberry pie with the brown and the purple mix. Mm-hmm. But his head, it came up, his forehead came up and sloped back and then up. But he had the low brow, but his eyes, man, they were every bit as human. The color of them was like almost orange. I went to high school with a boy named Jonathan that had eyes like that, just fire orange, man. His nose was wide and not completely flat. It was pronounced like the human, and it was bulbous at the end. But it was
looks like we've lost him for a second. You
there?
Yeah, we lost you for a second, Terry. You was talking about his eyes.
All right, his eyes were orange. This particular one had eyes like fire orange, man. I went to school with a guy named Jonathan. His eyes were the same color. It's weird, but they were orange, I swear. And his nose was wide, and it wasn't quite flat. It was almost human-like. It came down bulbous like ours, but it was kind of pushed down like that, and the nostrils were just wide, just huge nostrils. But it was more human shape than ape, but squashed like an ape. But at the same time, his bone structure, everything came out to a muzzle, not like a protruding animal, but he had lips, I bet, were that thick. You know what I mean? Just the meat on him. But yeah, his upper lip was just hard and stiff and just straight line. But this bottom one looked like he'd gotten to a hornet's nest. I mean, it was bubble gumped. But he had no hair on his face. And he had almost like a beard that came down beneath, almost like the Amish style. Where it's just underneath his chin, it just framed his face. The hair on his head was long. I mean, he looked like an early 90s rock star. But it came down to medium length on his shoulders and down almost like a cross on his shoulders and his back like an old donkey, where it was medium length. The rest of his hair was around his torso was shorter, almost like a man with too much hair on his back. You know what I mean? Just a little more than that. But his arms from here, they started about the same length, but gradually got longer till the hair on his body was almost a gray color, and it got darker and longer till down by his hands, it was probably that long and the color of coffee. And it was the same with his legs, long coffee colored hair up to about mid thigh. And then it got shorter till it got to his waist and gradually graduated into like a gray color. But you could still see the muscle definition under it. You could see him. This thing was petrifying. This thing moved like a tin soldier. It's coming straight downhill and taking huge steps. There's no bounce. There's no movement. There's no nothing. I was in the marching band in school. This guy could have walked on to any university and got a free ride if he knew how to play an instrument. There was no movement. It was scary. But this particular one, and I'm not saying everybody's wrong. Everybody wants to say they have flat feet. This one did not. This one, I saw him when he picked up his feet. You could definitely see the arches. But like I told you before, I spent a time as a zookeeper. Him being such a large animal with that weight, he's got that. There's a sack of gel in their feet, almost like for camels and the larger rhinoceroses and elephants. It's almost like a gel sack in the bottom of their feet. When they pick their foot up, it drops. And when they put their foot down, it displaces the weight. And it literally, he had that with his foot. He's got every bit as much of the arch as we did. But when he went down, it was displacing it. And I was watching it happen. But this thing, the way it looked, literally, if it were to get down on all fours, I could easily see someone mistaking it for a hyena at a distance from the coloring and the hair. But when it was walking, man, I could tell this thing had a level of confidence. It had been there many times before. It knew it wasn't seen. I had to yell at this thing when it finally looked up at me. And at that moment, it's standing in the road ditch. It wasn't paying attention. It's literally in the ditch. And I'm sitting in an 18-wheeler across the street from it. It's downhill from me. And when I got his attention and he looked up, he's looked at me square in the eyes. I'm in an 18-wheeler. He's standing in the ditch. And at that point, he looked up at me and he looked and realized where he was. He simply turned and started walking north up the road ditch, still counting on his fingers. He did not care. But that's when I got to see his back. I mean, this thing scared the shit out of me, man. I mean, it's the look. We have all seen its face. It's hard to describe, but if you ever like old Brothers Grimm's tales and old literature and folklore, those small little illustrations that they put, you know, we're at the beginning of chapters and in between pages, those weird little troll faces. This was a troll. The only way I can describe it, I have seen it in literature 100 times. I was looking at a troll. It scared me to death. And it was the way it moved, man. It's just, and the obvious intelligence, it just, I don't want anything to do with these things. I really don't. I mean, I respect them for everything that they are and everything that they may possibly contribute, but I don't want nothing to do with them, man.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Nothing should be that big, and to be that smart, and us, you know, I'm not scared of the fact that we're not aware how smart it is, but it's that smart and we're not aware of it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's just that's.
How deep do you think that ditch was?
Huh?
How deep do you think the ditch was?
It had to be at least a foot or two, man. I mean, but when he was standing there at that moment, like I said, the hedgerows were at that second, as little red Honda came by, the bushes were that much taller than the Honda. That's when I realized nobody could see him. And that was still coming up to about his navel.
You know, that's on a semi, that thing's probably about 7 or 8 feet easy. If it's standing in a ditch, well, it's probably more than that. It's probably like 8.5, maybe 9.
You're looking at 10 foot tall, 1,200 pounds. This thing from the back, his shoulder blade to his chest, I'll guarantee you was 3 foot. The width of the shoulders, every bit of 5. I mean, it's just massive, man. There's no sense in it. You can't even fathom it when you see something like this. And just the look on its face, I mean, just gruesome, man. I mean, because, you know, however old it was, it spent all that time weathered out there. I mean, you got all the wrinkles, the lines, the scars. I mean, this thing scared the living shit out of me. And I'm being honest, you know, I don't go in the woods because every time I think about the woods, I think of that thing and how it moved, how it looked. Because, I mean, you know, and I saw the other ones, they just looked like chimps and gorillas. This thing was totally different. Is it a soldier? Is it an alpha? Is it something totally different? Are we looking at the difference between, you know, Gigantopithecus and Denisovan? Because this thing was more human than those others that I saw. They were straight. You could tell they were ape. This was the wild man of Massachusetts. And I see why people fear it so much and why they want to say it's different, because it was so different. Now, whether that's the same thing that we have here, since I'm also on the East Coast, I don't know. I didn't see the one that was behind me, but it was so completely different. I mean, the others, they even, you know, they move like apes, you know, they resemble apes. This thing moved like a trained soldier. And I mean, I know the amount of training it takes to get that in someone, and there aren't many men that can do it. So I wasn't being hoaxed, and there's just nobody just randomly in Massachusetts somewhere hoaxing people by the road. Yeah, you know, at that size, and it's just, you know, and like I said, I saw everything down to the bottom of his feet, man. And
I'm gonna tell you, in my encounter, I had a road crossing, and it was roughly 3 feet in front of me. I was sitting in my driver's seat of my Jeep, and I had to slam on the brakes to keep from hitting it. So it was roughly at the end of the bumper, which put it about 3 feet away from me. But its gait as it moved was so smooth. It was like it wasn't like walking. It was almost like it was like gliding or skiing or something, you know.
Like a parade float just going by on a trailer.
and that always stuck out in my mind, how smooth it was. Now, in my encounter too, the thing that I saw looked more human. Actually, to be honest, it looked Native American is what it looked. It had the high, solid cheekbones and the native style nose, but it was really wide, and it was that struck me, and I was like you too. I always imagined that Sasquatch was a West Coast thing, Washington, Oregon, California, places like that. I had no clue until I'd actually seen one that they were on the West Coast. There wasn't that much information about the West Coast or the East Coast. So, it was incredible when it happened. David says it takes a lot of muscle to move that smooth, and that's the truth.
It takes a lot of focus. It's a lot of focus, a lot of discipline. And I mean, like the one I saw, he was literally trudging downhill. I mean, he wasn't doing no tiptoe like people would, and there was no bounce, there was no movement. He was literally taking huge steps, coming straight downhill, and just gliding like a train on tracks. Man, it's creepy. It just really is. There's nothing like it, and that's what bothers me about it is the way it moves, and this. It's almost a grace to it that you can't match and you can't comprehend. And that's moving around you in the woods, and it's as smart as you are. Why go in the woods? No. I used to hunt all the time, man. I could have won a fishing tournament on any given day. I haven't been in 15 years. I don't know.
Well, I still hunt and I still fish quite a bit. And I spend, off and on as much time in the woods as I can, but I'm not as able as I used to be. Well, another thing I wanted to talk about was you had mentioned you'd had some encounters with the lights, and I've also had encounters with the lights. Yeah. And the terrain where you said you'd experienced the lights is almost identical to the terrain where I experienced the lights. It was sandy. There was a lot of quartz in the area. Just give us a description of what you saw.
Well, I mean, I've seen them several times. I mean, that's the one thing that when we were moving here, Granddaddy warned us about, and why he didn't want us on the land at nights, because he wasn't sure what they were. But it's just, at first, if you're out there and it gets to a certain time of day, you'll just see a glow in the field. It'll be a small glow, and it'll just kind of pulse up a little bit, and a little light will just kind of flip up out of it like a lava lamp. And the glow will kind of die down, and it'll start to flow away, and maybe you'll get another one or two. But it just floats around and heads for the woods and takes the path of least resistance downhill till it gets to the water. Now, honestly, I think it's just a natural phenomenon. Like you said, the makeup is the same. This is a great big aquifer, and there's a lot of quartz. I think it's just a release of energy from the mantle of the crust. When we go from night to day, the expansion and contraction of heat and cold, their energy's got to go somewhere. And they can prove that, with the earthquake lights out on the West Coast. Everybody out there knows what the earthquake lights are. Every time there's seismic activity, they see the lights. I think it's just that. But, there's so many people that now are investigating Bigfoot that never before spent time in the woods, that never before knew the folklore of the area. That they didn't know the stories of the natives of the land before they got there. They didn't. They just, oh my God, this is Bigfoot. It's Bigfoot. He's spiritual. No, Bigfoot is an animal, and you're all are just you're not. Everybody's just taken for granted how smart he is. And that's where everybody stands. That's why nobody understands what's going on. And I think a lot of times, everyone thinks he's got these magical powers. I think we don't understand ourselves how our bodies react. I think the infrasound and ultrasound have a lot to do with it. I've seen studies where a tiger will hit an animal with ultrasound, and that animal will stand there blind as a bat, not seeing the tiger that walks up to his nose to attack him. And I think that's what we experience. If these things emit a sound that shuts off our receptors, then it looks like they disappeared. But I really think that I've heard them make vocals here through the woods at times that you wouldn't think was possible for anything in flesh and blood. And I think it's highly possible that if it's their natural reaction, to just emit a sound that we just respond to in an adverse way. Yeah. So we don't see. And, you know, honestly, that's, I really think that's just a natural reaction to everything. And we don't understand it because we think we are the top of the everything, and we're really not. We just have tools.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And depending, you know, like I always say, when you're in the ocean, the further you go out in the ocean, the lower you get on that food chain. Mm-hmm. You're no longer the apex. You drip down. And it's the same, too, when you go into the forest. You know, if you're in the forest, you know, you're not necessarily the top of the food chain.
And the food chain isn't anything. I can step out here on the porch and get bit by a spider and be done. I mean, it's
yeah. That's what I'm saying. You know, I don't necessarily agree with the food chain. I think it's more of a circle, depending on where you're standing at the time.
Most of the thing is there's no one. I mean, not saying no one. There are some that are, but there's a lot of people that aren't putting in real critical thought. Mm-hmm. They just, you know, they see what somebody else said or did, and they want to parrot it. And, you know, and I can prove that if you go on any site with believers or, you know, researchers, and you try to have an educated conversation, it's not going to happen. As soon as you pose a question, they're going to hit you with a link to somebody else's opinion and go back to talking politics. No one's putting critical thought into it because, honestly, you know, no one's had to live with them in the yard for 40 years. So. Mm-hmm. It's and you know, the whole time it's happening, you don't know what's going on. It's not till something happens when you look back and put the pieces together that you realize, oh, so all this time it was my drunk cousin. Is, you know, it's basically what it boils down to. you don't give it enough credit. It's it watches us its entire life, and you know, you show it every trick you learn, and you're not going to catch it.
Interesting. Well, Brian, I'm going to be honest, that's all I have right now. Is there anything else you want to get into, or?
No, not really. I just glad to be able to share it. Like I told you before, I've shared it before, and, you know, through the editing, there was a lot that wasn't explained and left some questions, and I felt some of them got answered tonight, so I feel better about it. I just glad to help you out, man. I saw your ad looking for people to tell their story, and I wanted to share mine. So.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. You have a very fascinating story, for real.
Well, I'm sure everyone will think I'm crazy, you know, especially with that one counting on his fingers. But it happened, and they can think what they want. Right now, I've got an entire family standing behind me that watches these woods every day. So they can think what they want.
Well, do you care to hang on for a minute after I end the show? I can get back to you.
Yeah, if you need me to, that's no problem.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank Brian Pearce for being on the show tonight and sharing his experience with us. And as always, the chat was wide open. I really appreciate you guys coming on here. The show is 100% for you guys, the viewers. And I hope that I'm continuing to, you know, bring the type of shows that Sasquatch Watch Radio is famous for. And I just like to tell everybody, you know, be safe out there. And have a good rest of the week. Good night, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to Sasquatch Watch Radio. We truly appreciate each and every one of you. Stay connected. Don't miss our next exciting show, airing next Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. To stay updated, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd also love for you to join our Facebook page at facebook.com/Sasquatch Watch Radio and check out our website at squatchradio.com. Share your stories and feedback. Your feedback means the world to us, so please give us a thumbs up on our shows and let us know what you think. Have you had an encounter? If you've had a sighting or encounter, we want to hear from you. Reach out to us through our website, YouTube channel, or Facebook page. And if you're interested in being a guest on our podcast, please don't hesitate to contact us. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next Monday night.